my pocket.
$495.
Okay, I'll get you some cash.
And then you have to come in, list it down.
Joe, witness.
You have to give me
I got my bag for you.
Holy mackerel.
What's the matter?
I don't remember how long I've been in my house.
What are you doing? Oh,
you too, Senora.
oh.
Food for you at the end.
What on earth are you doing? Where's Wendy? Are we ready to go? Yeah? Okay. Let me look quickly. She went away. There, it's Evan, right? I now call this meeting to order. Good afternoon, and today is a special meeting on May 2nd. Mr. Jaramillo, will you please take roll?
Ms. Dahlman.
Present.
Mr. Castro. Present. I am present. Mr. Frank.
Here.
President Flores.
Here.
Madam President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Student Advisor Evan from Oñate High School. And thank you for being here, Evan.
Yeah.
And you are a senior graduating, right?
Yes.
That's right. Okay, I will now move on to the approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the February 21st, 2017 regular board meeting minutes.
I move.
Okay?
I second.
Mr. Castro first and Mr. Jaramillo seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's see. I need to look at the agenda very quickly here. And I am going to, I have received a request to move item 3C3, presentation on international students, earlier on the agenda to be heard as the first item under the superintendent's report. Is that, I'm looking to see, there you are, okay. To make sure you're here, so I need to do this, okay. And I also, at the same time, it's okay if I do it in the same motion, to also, I'm going to go ahead and ask to table under 6A, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to ask to table these policies right here because I think there are some things coming up nationally that, that we need to wait for.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's
Madam-
4, Section 4.
Oh, is it 4? Oh, okay.
4A.
4A.
And those would be policies ADF, policy JLJ, and policy EFE. And I apologize to the board. We're just not ready with those just right yet.
Okay, and I understand that Miss Kathy is not here, is that correct? Oh, okay, somebody told me you weren't going to be here. Oh, okay, well, we're gonna go ahead and table them, and we'll just, I think, if the board approves it, okay?
Madam President,
Yes.
can you tell me the numbers again for section 4?
Okay, it's section 4A, 4, 5, and 6,
4, 5, and 6.
okay? Do we have any questions on that? So I make a motion to go ahead and move up item 3C3, presentation on international students, and to table 4A, 4, 5, and 6.
So moved.
Okay, Mr.
second.
Frank makes a motion, and Mr. Castro seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that is the amendment. And now I will make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Castro and Mr. Frank, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So then the agenda has been amended. Let's see. We now go on to the closed executive. The board met in closed executive session on May 2nd, 2017, and we started at 3:38 p.m. and we closed at 3:50. to discuss limited personnel matters specifically so the superintendent can update the board regarding the investigations of certified employees and the termination of classified employee by the superintendent as permitted under Section 10-15, 1H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, and communications with legal counsel regarding threat and litigation as permitted under Section 10-15-1H7 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. So that takes us on to the superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, members of the board, as we just amended the agenda, at this time I'd like to call Dr. Wendy Miller Tomlinson, and we're going to work with a professor from New Mexico State University on a presentation for international students. And I think we have that presentation ready, am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. And so, Madam President, once again, this is just our attempt to begin engaging the board in discussions and making you aware of the many facets of running a school system.
Okay.
And we have Dr. Chair Vinnock and I have met and looked at this proposal, and I thought it was not only worthwhile, but I thought the board should see it as well. So, Dr. Miller Tomlinson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. I'm honored to introduce Dr. Christian Shervinock from Shervinock International, who will facilitate a presentation on a New Mexico high school to university pathway program. As Dr. Ewing said, he has already met with Dr. Shervinock, and I've met with Dr. Shervinock to get the particulars of the program, so I will let him explain those in detail. But I think this is a really exciting program that he has put together and will be very beneficial to bringing additional diversity to our community. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Christian Shervinock.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, first of all, thank you very much for moving me to the top of the agenda. I'm in a rush to catch an airplane to Hermosillo, Sonora, so thank you for accommodating that. I stand before you today to tell you, as Dr. Miller Tomlinson, to tell you a little bit more about this program, to hopefully give you a little information, to tell you the direction that we're headed, and to open it up at the end for any questions or comments or concerns that the group might have, the board or members of the audience. Just a quick overview of what we'll talk about, and I'll try to make this presentation as concise as possible. I want to tell you a little bit about the company, Shervinock International. I think it's important that everyone knows a little bit about me and where I've come from, a little bit of my professional background in international programs. I want to talk most in depth about the program, the student profile, what kind of students we'll be bringing in for their senior year of high school, hopefully, at Las Cruces High Schools, the services that we provide, a little bit about the budget and the fees that the students and their parents will be paying to participate in the program, and then closing with the benefits for international students to attend high school in the United States, at least for their senior year, before progressing on to undergrad and hopefully graduate programs, and how international students in our high schools can really benefit the larger community, certainly the student cohorts and the greater community of Las Cruces. So just briefly about Shervinock International. I started this company in 2015, kind of late in the year, and then took a big leap of faith and took half a year off work from New Mexico State University to really get things rolling on this. And I really branched into kind of two areas, consulting. You'll see here in a moment when I talk about my CV that I've spent a lot of time working in international education. So it's pretty natural to go out there and help institutions of higher ed, both here in the United States and internationally, with recruiting efforts that they're interested in, high school programs such as these, different types of pathway and intensive English programs. And I really came out of the process of developing one program that I want to speak to you specifically about, and that's the high school to university pathway program. So a little bit about me. You can see up there, I've been haunting New Mexico State University for quite a long time. Came down from Vancouver, British Columbia, which is where I'm from originally. So I've been in the state of New Mexico for 12 years. My entire family's followed me here, including my Danish mother and my stepdad from Iowa. So we're all New Mexicans now and love Las Cruces very much. Never plan on leaving, hopefully. And I've worked in international programs at the university for most of that time and have basically worked in every office that we have up there, majority of the time running the study abroad office, so helping students from New Mexico State University and faculty have short-term or longer-term sojourns abroad. The program that I mentioned earlier is the New Mexico High School to University Pathway Program. Before I get into the details, a little bit of background. So in my years of working with international students both here and abroad, I began to notice that there was a real trend and a request for students to come to the United States at a younger age and actually start participating in high school programs. University at the undergrad and grad level has always been very popular. The United States is the gold standard. It still remains the gold standard in regards to international students that want to participate in a degree abroad. Current numbers are about 1 million students in the United States right now, 300,000 from China, which is the #1 sending or exporting country to the United States. But increasingly, we were seeing a call to have high school programs involved. And one thing that's really unique to the state of New Mexico is there's legislation that allows for an international student that comes and participates in their senior year, graduates, obtains a diploma from a New Mexico high school. They can matriculate on to a college or university for their undergrad at in-state tuition, and that's a huge value for international students. The difference is immense financially. Most international students are paying upwards to $100,000 for a degree. At New Mexico State University, out-of-state tuition for 4 years. If they graduate in 4 years, is about $85,000. So within state tuition, if they choose NMSU to attend, they'll be finishing their degree for about $24,000, $25,000. So that's great value for our international students to come to New Mexico in Las Cruces. So briefly, students will come in, attend one of our 4 public high schools for their senior year, live with a host family that Shervanock International, myself, works with recruiting and vetting and getting FBI background checked and trained and paid. Unlike a lot of programs that call upon host families to host high school students, a lot of times that's asked to be done voluntarily. We pay certainly enough to cover, the month-to-month of housing students and feeding them 2 meals a day and giving them a place to stay. We're really interested in working with LCPS and on a collaboration to see if there's faculty and staff, teachers throughout the LCPS system that might be interested in hosting these students. I think that would be a great partnership. And especially if these faculty and staff have students of their own about the same age as these high school students, I think that would be phenomenal for obvious reasons. And then when they graduate from their senior year and they've had that phenomenal experience of grade 12 and all the things that students get to experience during that senior year, they can matriculate on to any institution of higher ed in the state of New Mexico. Of course, I want them to go to New Mexico State University. I work there. I can certainly help bridge that process, and I'll speak to the services a little bit and how I do that. But if they want to go up the road to Albuquerque or Socorro or Roswell, or if they want to go to Silver City, any of those institutions, start at the community college, that's great as well. The profile, like I said, high school seniors. So I'm working specifically right now in Vietnam, but increasingly in Mexico. And I'd like to shift a little bit away, not entirely away from Vietnam, but Mexico is a natural fit in this community. Students from Mexico feel very much at home, culturally, linguistically, often weather-wise. So it's a natural fit for students from Mexico as well. Vietnam, just briefly on that, the reason I started with that country is I've got a close colleague at the university who's a faculty member. He's from Vietnam. So his sister, who's a retired nuclear physicist, was looking for something to do in international, and so he connected the two of us, and here we go. There's one student named Tao who's on the program. She's been enjoying her senior year at Las Cruces High School. She'll be graduating on the 20th, finishing classes on the 12th, and attending New Mexico State University starting this summer with a major of ag, business, and agriculture economics. GPA requirements, 2.75. The 2 tests that kind of benchmark or gauge a student's English proficiency, the big ones are TOEFL and IELTS. We've set that at a 500 or a 6.0, and to give folks a sense of what that means for those of you that don't know those tests specifically, it puts them at a upper intermediate level. So certainly enough to do well. And just as an indicator, Tao's GPA is a 3.6. She's done quite well. The services, we do full advising and admissions support. We work very closely with Dr. Miller Tomlinson and her team to get all the application materials together, bring them in, work with Dr. Miller Tomlinson and her team. If I can assist at all with the issuance of the I-20, which is the visa document from LCPS, I can help in that. I've done that a lot at the university. I do a lot of advising with the students and their families pre-arrival and pre to their appointment meeting with the U.S. consulate or embassy in Vietnam and in the future in Mexico. And there's a lot that goes into getting them prepared for that. I help them with their admissions to New Mexico State University or wherever else they choose to attend. Obviously, medical insurance is very important. We do orientations. We pick them up at the airport. We take them around the state and the region for excursions. Tao spent her birthday with my family at Disneyland, which is pretty cool. A little bit about the budget that you can see there. The last point I bulleted for a reason. I want everyone to know that these students are paying tuition. Current tuition rates for Las Cruces, our students in LCPS that are out of district, are $6,000. Of course, anytime that adjusts, and I know that that's fluid, certainly working at the university, we're fully aware of how those change. So we'll continue to increase the cost along with how that's set here at LCPS. So reasons why international students are seeking out opportunities to study in high school and at a younger age, I think it's pretty self-explanatory in those 4 points. Having an extra year to really pick up the culture and the language in an immersive setting is very valuable. They can hit the road running when they get to university. It's hard coming from a foreign country and adapting to the academic setting that we have here in the United States. So there's a lot that can be done in that area by having students come in for their senior year and understanding how the two systems work, high school and college. College readiness, I think that goes without saying that there's going to be just a lot of help and preparation in regards to spending their senior year and being able to matriculate and bridge to a university. And social acculturation, I think that's the most important point up there. Having that fantastic last year of high school, building that friend base, a lot of those friends are going to hopefully matriculate onto the same university or college that these students are. So having that already kind of under their belt is going to be really helpful for these students in adjusting to university. Other reasons why international students are valuable, in the dry run yesterday, I shared with the group that I wish I would have flip-flopped and had what's in the black text on top, because I certainly think that's the more important of the points. So I'll start with that. There's a lot of people here in Las Cruces that aren't going to have an opportunity to travel internationally. And I was sharing yesterday that I grew up in a house with my mother's from Denmark, and kind of true to the Danish lifestyle. They're very open with their homes and inviting to people from all over the world. So I grew up as a youngster having people from all walks of life and spiritualities and cultures coming through our home, and I learned a tremendous amount. In fact, that's probably why I'm here today, giving this presentation and why I wanted to start this program. So I think having more international students in our high schools are going to benefit our students here in Las Cruces that may not have those opportunities to get out there and fly to Vietnam or travel to southern Mexico or Ecuador or Argentina or what have you. Financially, international students bring a lot of money in, not just to the region, but to the country. You can see those numbers. The first one was for last year nationally. The bottom two are here in New Mexico, the middle one being the state of New Mexico, the last one being U.S. Congressional District 2, and money that's come in from having international students and their families in the state. That concludes my talk. I'll open it up to any questions that the board or the audience might have. Again, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, board members, any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Castro.
Sure. I just had one. How does the new administration policies on immigration impact on this program?
Yeah, There's a lot of speculation right now. Of course, the executive orders have scared a lot of international people off at the university, working in international programs. Folks are worried. We'll have to wait and see. We don't anticipate with Vietnam that there's going to be any particular issues. The administration hasn't focused on that part of the world. But I do know just from kind of my contacts internationally that a lot of people are looking increasingly to do high school and university studies in Canada and the UK and Australia and New Zealand.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anyone else? I had a question, Dr. Shervonic. The families that choose to do this, they're fairly wealthy families. Is that a correct assumption on my part?
Not always. I mean, I'd say middle class. I mean, using Tao as an example, her father's a police officer and her mom's an accountant. So the families in Vietnam, I can definitely speak to this. I mean, they save money for higher education. They pool family resources from extended families.
I see.
So it's, I think if you were looking at, schools, international students that were attending high schools or universities that were paying full out-of-state tuition, that would be the case, Madam President. But I think with this program, you're looking at more of a working class.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good to know.
Yep.
It's, I wasn't sure, what
Yeah.
what their situation was.
Right. Yeah, this program is definitely geared to the working class, and that's why it was very near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, board members, if that's it, then we thank you, Dr. Shervonic.
thank you. I
and
appreciate
be
it.
careful
I
going
appreciate
to Hermosillo.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam President, members of the board, the administrative team and I will continue working with Dr. Shervonic, and we're going to move forward with this proposal and this study for other students. I think it will not only enhance their knowledge, but it'll enhance our knowledge as well.
Yes, that's the good thing. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Now, I'm going to start with the announcements. First, I want to talk to, for just a moment, the student advisors. So, Evan, if you would help me. I've received an invitation by the Federal Reserve Bank in El Paso, which is the Federal Reserve Bank for this region of the country, to go to the Federal Reserve, have a meeting, and actually have a tour of their building. And I couldn't think of any better group of people to take with me than the student advisors. And so we will be probably 10 stories underground with all the money in this region of the country. It's not much. So if you would be so kind as to bring this up with your next student advisor meeting, and then my team will start working with Wendy in the back, and we will schedule. I am going to schedule us on a school bus so that we can actually get as close to the building as possible. And then we will take a tour. And then, Madam President, I will ask the student advisors to actually give the board a report on what they learned from the Federal Reserve.
That sounds good to me.
The next thing I'd like to talk about, I see in the audience my friend Debbie Moore from the Chamber, and I would just like to inform the board and the public. Debbie and I are working very closely together, the Chamber and the school district. We have to. We're one community. And I want to thank you for coming to the board meeting today. And I also want to publicly thank you for the monthly lunch meetings that we are having and our collaboration. You may not know, but she was a budget specialist with the university system here in New Mexico, and she has provided me invaluable comments as we go through the budget session and has offered her expertise to even look at our budget. So thank you very much. The next thing, you may see some of us wearing these blue ribbons. And so I'll speak just for a moment. Madam President, members of the board, at the next board meeting, if we are ready, we will invite some individuals to come before the board. I'm always mindful of student privacy, and I'm always mindful of the privacy of families. However, we have reached out to the father, and as many of you know, last Friday evening at a track meet, we had a student with I'm going to say, severe medical emergency. And our team of individuals at that track meet stepped in and did not only a yeoman's job and not only an outstanding job, but they saved the life of a child. And so this child, I'm just going to use her first name, and I'm going to direct staff that we only use her first name. Kaylin, and she's a student at Vista Middle School. She's still in the hospital, but the father has given us permission to send her well wishes, and we certainly want to thank those first responders on the scene. There were some very tense moments there. I think, Madam President, you had just left the meet.
Yes.
Mr. Jaquez was our district administrator in charge. He called me, and I drove there, and then we all en route went to the hospital to be with the family through this tragedy. I think it speaks volumes to the fact that this organization really is a family. And so we're going to bring those first responders before the board and publicly thank them for what they've done. We will also invite Kaylin and her father and mother if they wish to come. We'll certainly leave that up to them. And I'll just close the story by saying, before I made any comments today, I asked Ms. Galvan to reach out to the father and have a conversation. And I forget that you all are 2 degrees of separation. And so she called the father thinking that she knew him, but she knew his father. And so they went to school together. So she is associated with the grandfather. So we're very, very proud of our staff, and I'm very proud of what they have done. So to Kaylin and her family, we continue to send you well wishes, and to our staff, the executive cabinet and I couldn't be prouder of the first responder participants, both from the community and from the staff. I'm now going to move on to the budget update, and I'll take a drink of water before I start. I don't know. We continue to follow direction from Santa Fe. We are awaiting the legislature to be called into special session. We have decided, as we've spoken publicly before, to go ahead with a budget. We are having a conservative budget at this time. We will be presenting a formal budget to the board next week. We will be presenting that to the public. As we have prepared this budget, I think we're very proud, the executive cabinet, and certainly Ms. Valdez and her staff, they have worked very hard to maintain levels of service for teaching and levels of service for classroom and levels of service for instruction. And of course, that would always be my primary focus. As we look at the budget, we are happy to report that we did not have to give back the $3.5 million that we thought we were going to have to give back from our reserve funds. So that is indeed a good sign for us. It means that as we begin budgeting next year, if we are good stewards of the money, we start with our $7 million already in the reserve fund that we would like to keep there. However, we don't know what our final payment will be from PED next year. The SEG was released at the spring budget conference, but it was released with the caveat that the legislature will come back into session and they can take a reduction. And so knowing that, what we have done is prepare a conservative budget, eliminating $1.3 million from the central office. And originally I was saying we were holding $1.4 million, which is 20 teaching positions in a pool. I am now saying that after some conversations with Crystal, the executive cabinet, and with our teachers and our colleagues from NEA and CSEC, we went ahead and released 10 of those 20 teaching positions last week to principals so that we don't have to look for teachers after school has started. So we're only holding 10 positions back now. So we've released $700,000, feeling somewhat comfortable that what we have budgeted is still a conservative budget. By doing that, we pretty much have stayed status quo in each school with teaching allotments. We're very proud to say that. We have looked at an allotment formula per school. We will be presenting to the board what that formula looks like, and then we will actually have our instruction staff speak to the board. When we say to the public that we give teachers 25-1, and then when we meet teachers, they say, why do I have 35 kids in my classroom? So we want to have a public explanation of that. And we'll also have our accountability staff run a master schedule report in which we show the class load of every class in the district so we can begin to see that. And so, Madam President and members of the board, we do have a formal budget coming to you next week. We feel very positive with the budget. We are very confident with what we have put together. That budget does not appear to have major reductions in classroom teaching and instructional services. We are holding 10 teaching positions until after school starts, and we see what will happen with Santa Fe. And we are still mindful of the 1.3 million reduction in central office staff. Moving on, I'm going to, before I do my 90-day report, I'm going to call on my friends from NEA, Las Cruces, and CSEC. And just to remind the board and the audience, what we've done is NEA and CSEC will come forward and give us reports. I look at those organizations as training organizations. We are working and training together with our workforce, whether it's teachers or whether it's classified staff. And so I've offered them the opportunity to speak on our training endeavors. And I have also said to them, comments about my job performance or comments about the performance of the executive cabinet should remain in public comment, as anyone would want to publicly comment. I'm only asking that they come forward and inform the board and the public of our joint venture work, and we're very proud of that. And so I think at this time, I'm going to ask, do you have any comments? We don't have anything to report. Okay, all right. And then I'll ask Ms. Irma, do you have anything tonight? May I invite you to the podium?
Keep saying next week. 2 weeks.
Yes, we can ask him right now.
Senora Flores, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. As you know, CSEC Las Cruces is a joint or merged local where we are affiliated with both NEA and AFT. So I would like to take just a few minutes and read a release that came from President of the AFT, Stephanie Lee, regarding the second round of cuts to K-3 plus and bilingual programs. As stated by Stephanie Lee, president of AFT New Mexico, she says, tomorrow's announcement, which is today, by Secretary of Education Hannah Scandera and the New Mexico Public Education Department of proposed cuts to the state bilingual programs on top of already announced cuts to K-3 plus programs is an outright assault on the ability of New Mexico students to create a quality public education for our state. Secretary Scandera and Governor Martinez's so-called streamlining of services means a disruption of bilingual education programs, which will impact 20,000 students across our state. Additionally, the New Mexico PED has just recently cut $23.7 million in funding for K-3 plus programs, a program which has been proven to narrow the achievement gap between at-risk students and their peers, increase cognitive skills, and improve test scores for participating students. These cuts will prevent thousands of students from being able to get a jump start on their education and seriously curtails districts across New Mexico from being able to offer this program to all eligible children. The New Mexico PED and Governor Martinez continue to drive a false narrative about New Mexico's public schools, that they are simply bloated bureaucracies who poorly manage their budget. The reality is the New Mexico PED and Governor Martinez have used hard-saved district reserves to bail out their own empty coffers because of their gross mismanagement of state funds. We call upon the New Mexico PED and the governor to take responsibility for their actions to stop blaming New Mexico school districts for their own shortcomings as leaders. It is time for Secretary Scandera and Governor Martinez to be held accountable for the ways they have harmed our state students and reverse course immediately before more permanent damage is done. Enough is enough. And that is by President Stephanie Lee of the AFT New Mexico. Also, in a different note, I wanted to say that I have been working with Glenda Rodriguez, Director of Special Ed, to create a survey for educational assistance for professional development for next year. So, Glenda, thank you very much for your commitment to educational assistance. Included also is Dr. Roberto Lozano, because he also pitched in to do a survey for bilingual ed. And so I look forward with Associate Superintendent Elena Martinez, along with the other directors, to do a similar survey for educational assistance. Thank you all for your commitment.
Thank you. And let me remind staff that evaluation tool is in my own evaluation. So let's make sure we have an excellent evaluation tool. Thank you. And Madam President and members of the board, in response to the announced of cuts to the K-3 Plus program, I just want to inform the board, we will do a formal presentation before the board with Ms. Martinez, but I do want to publicly thank her. She is probably the best steward of public money I have ever seen when it comes to knowing how to move funds, whether it's federal, local, or state. And she came to the executive cabinet yesterday with these concerns, and I'm happy to report to you, even though we are going to take a $400,000 hit again in our budget, Ms. Martinez and her staff were able to keep our program running as is, and I can say with no cuts at all. So once again, I do want the board to know we are focused on student instruction, and even though we continue to receive these unfunded mandates, we are continuing with an instructional focus. So to the instruction department and to our directors in the back, I certainly thank you, and I want the public to know that we are going to continue our K-3 Plus as is. So thank you. And now, Madam President, members of the board, I'd like to engage the board just in a few moments for a discussion of what I call my Look, Listen, and Learn tour, the 90-day plan. It's past 90 days. I decided to hold off. We were waiting to see what was going to happen with the funding from Santa Fe. But first, let me just start by saying I am in my 5th month here. What a pleasure it is to be here. What a pleasure it is to work with the board, and what a pleasure it is to work with the staff. I think we have come together and are looking, listening, and learning together as a group, and I couldn't be more proud of the executive cabinet and the superintendent's cabinet. And I also could not be more proud of the comments coming from our teaching force, our clerical staff, and our principals. So I thank all of you. And as I show you what I have done over the last 3.5 months, I think first I'd like to start with what is the mission of the Las Cruces Public Schools. And so this is the school district's own mission that was created before I came here. And that mission states that the Las Cruces Public Schools, in partnership with students, families, and the community, provides a student-centered learning environment that cultivates character, fosters academic excellence, and embraces diversity. And as I began looking at your district and thinking of anything that I could do to make things better here, I had to keep this in mind at all times. And so I commend you for such a mission statement. And I used this mission statement as I began to formulate what I think we should do in the future under my leadership. As I wrote the plan came forward with really 3 types of themes. And I'm going to thank the staff who helped me put this together. I'm looking at Dr. Lozano in the back. We worked a few days on this, and he is the one who said, as I look at your work, I definitely see 3 themes coming forward. And what are those themes? We talk about transform, we talk about innovate, and we talk about support. And I think this really mimics what I do with the staff and what I do in the school district each and every day. And so as I take you through these 3 themes, I decided to focus my 90-day plan on initiatives out of each of the executive cabinet member offices. And so now I'll just take you through each of our individual offices. And the first office that I'll show you here, we have the superintendent's office. I will have a new office called Chief Officer of Equity, Innovation, and Social Justice. We will continue the academic division, the accountability and research division, the communication division, the operation and leadership division, the human resource division, and the final financial services division. I'm going to walk you through each of these divisions and show you what I think we should have as a focus for the upcoming school year. And so now if we could go to the superintendent's office, The first thing that I think we will work on is our reorganization and transformation of the central office. That will result in a $1.3 million reduction in salaries and benefits from this building redirected to schools and the classroom. We will next embark on a strategic plan for all divisions and all schools. So currently those don't exist, or if they do, they don't exist in the format that we need them. We will take those strategic plans from both schools and divisions and incorporate them into our next step, which is advanced ed certification. Currently, our high schools are certified through advanced ed, but our elementary and middle schools are not. We're going to go through a certification process for the entire school district. We've brought representatives from advanced ed to the board for a meeting previously. We're going to bring them back this summer and let them continue to present to the board on what advanced ed certification looks like. This is a national certification that all school districts embark on. You have a choice of either doing certification school by school or district-wide. We will do a district certification. And most times when these individuals come in, they say the same thing. Instead of being a school district, you are a district of schools. And so this allows all of our schools to get on the same page with the central office, with the superintendent, and with the board. And so I look forward to working on this endeavor with the board and with our principals and with our staff. I think it's most important that we continue our community membership and our collaboration, and seeing Debbie Moore here tonight only exemplifies what we are trying to do here, and that is this school system is a community, and we must work with all individuals. I certainly believe in staff recognition, and I certainly believe in improving staff morale. We will continue to see what we can do. We will continue to monitor staff morale and recognition, and we will continue to ask for suggestions, and we will continue to ask staff how we can certainly make things better for them. As a teacher, I certainly believe in teacher support, I believe in flexibility, and I absolutely believe in academic freedom. And I will continue to say to our teachers, you have my permission to enter your classroom, close the door, and teach. From the central office perspective, we've talked with our administration here about being visible and about support at all types of school activities, including extracurricular activities. And I have to give a shout out to the staff. I know Gabe and Crystal were both working the middle school track meet, and in many districts, you work those meets when you are a principal or an assistant principal, and when you become a central office person, you stop going to those. And we don't do that here. We try to have support at each and every one of those, and we will continue to encourage that. I think Ernie Viramontes, is Ernie in the audience now? I think he covers every sports event that we have. So even though he's working his 8 to 5 job, he's on duty every night. And then I think we must continuously monitor, support, and expand the district's academic programs. We must always have an academic focus. So those will be the initiatives coming out of my office. As we move to the other offices within the superintendent's executive cabinet, the chief officer of equality, innovation, and social justice certainly mimics some of the things that we have been doing here together as a board and as a superintendent and as a school district when we talk about ethnic studies programs and when we talk about diversity of students. This department will continue to develop and reform strategies to close student achievement gaps. They will enable central office to enhance school site level improvement efforts through equity, innovation, and social justice. The leadership in this department will include bilingual education, English language learners, migrant education, community outreach, special student services. And the initiatives that we will take forward will be transform and enhance district bilingual and English learner teaching programs. We certainly need to have a focus on what we're doing in ESOL and how we can make it better. I'm pleased to announce we're going to develop, execute, and monitor international welcome centers at the 4 comprehensive high schools. And so I did this in Atlanta, and I will certainly continue that here. We are going to establish an ethnic studies center focused on diversity and restorative justice. We're going to transform and enhance the district-wide gifted student service delivery model. I've met with gifted teachers. Gifted teachers are right now focused on gifted as a service model, and I will work with them on focusing gifted services as a teaching model. We will also develop a district-wide bilingual ESOL teaching program to enhance instruction and accuracy in identifying EL students and in continuing our bilingual studies. So currently we have a bilingual program in elementary school, and then what happens? We must continue that. We also, if we're good stewards of our money and if we are good stewards of education, those students should be taking the AP Spanish language and AP Spanish literature exams in high school. Those are college credit courses. And so we just simply need to put a little more work there. Moving forward to the academic division, I am announcing today that we are going to transform the Professional Development Center, and from this day forward, we will begin referring to it as the Teaching and Learning Center. I think professional development is wonderful, but what they do in the PDC Center is far more than professional development. They are doing teaching and learning. We will enhance our professional development opportunities for staff, and one way we certainly need to do that is by surveying staff to ensure that differentiated professional development is offered. And so we're working on those instruments now. We will share those evaluations with the board, and we will share the information that we've gained. If we're offering professional development that's not relative, then teachers aren't coming and our support staff aren't coming. So we will have an enhanced review of this. We will continue our district-wide literacy implementation plan and certainly continue to support that. I am announcing that we are going to discontinue the University of Virginia school turnaround model. I don't like the word school turnaround. Schools don't need to be turned around. Schools are wonderful. The teachers I have seen are teaching the best that I have seen in any school district. Society may need some issues in turning around, but our teachers certainly do not. And so I am going to say that we are going to restore collaborative, shared leadership at school sites, and we certainly are going to monitor and provide guidance and support from the district and from our teaching and learning center. Support school counselors and social workers in creating and implementing a district-wide counseling plan and a district-wide college and career readiness plan. I've already met with the district school counselors, and I've charged them with creating this plan. Talking about plans after high school does not start in the 11th grade. It starts in elementary school. And we need to make sure our students are aware of what those opportunities are. Also, as a district with 78% Hispanic students, I am very attuned to the fact that individuals may try to guide students to certain careers or vocations based on the past educational experience of their parents or the income of their family, and I certainly don't believe that. I'm an example of the first one in my family to obtain a college education, as many of us in the room are, and we want to make sure students understand that they have those same opportunities. So regardless of your economic status and regardless of your ethnicity, every student has the opportunity to attend college or a career and vocational training program. We just need to make sure you understand what all the benefits are of each one of those. We have already begun the transformation of the employee allotment process for schools, trying to utilize an equitable formula to ensure consistent, open, equitable, transparent, verifiable process to all stakeholders, and to maintain open and transparent records on the number of employees and vacancies in each school. So as we put our allotment sheets together, I will post those online. The entire public can see how many teachers have been assigned to each school location, and that will be done by formula. Now, I need to remind teachers and I need to remind our employees, students don't come in bundles of 25, and so that's why we get in trouble sometimes with our numbers. But we do want to be more transparent and more open with this allotment process. The other thing that we want to do, our 7 million reserve funds will be budgeted as a line item, and Crystal helped me, but I think we will call it a reserve fund 7 million. In the past, we have budgeted reserve funds by not filling open positions as we go through the school year. So that becomes misleading. You think we have more teachers in the teaching force than we do, or you think that we have more people in schools than we do. Now, we will still have some savings because let's say a teacher resigns in September and we don't find a replacement until October. There's a month that we might have in their savings in their salary. But we don't want to use teaching or support positions to balance the budget. What we want to do is say our reserve fund is just that, a $7 million reserve fund. And every position that we post, we intend to hire someone for those positions. And Madam President, members of the board, I'm pleased to announce to you that we have given principals the go-ahead. They may post positions starting a few days ago. We've authorized them to go ahead and interview candidates and make hiring recommendations to Dr. Serrano and his staff. I have asked the Human Resource Department to monitor the hiring of employees, and I have stated that only Human Resources will be the official authorizer of any employment action within the district, and that includes my office. We send everyone through Human Resources, but principals certainly have permission to post vacancies, to begin interviewing candidates, and to hire, especially students coming out of NMSU now, or to hire any temporary employee who came in after the first day of the school year. And then lastly, in the academic division, I again have to give accolades. I have said just a moment ago, and I will say it again, I think the federal program model that Erlinda and her team has put together is outstanding. The use of those federal dollars and the knowledge you have with those federal dollars and how to use that money without supplanting is phenomenal. No one else can put together a program the way you have, and so I absolutely commend that division for the work done. A lot of years. We're not going to say how many, right? Am I allowed to say? What number are we at? So, Madam President, she has 43 years of experience in education. Moving on to the Accountability and Research Division. We will look in this division at enhancing reporting procedures for our FTE reporting by distinct categories. We receive money based on the category and the type of student that we report. We'll also look at the training and experience funding for the district. We receive money for training and experience based on teachers that we report. We are in the process of developing district-wide assessment calendars where all mandated assessments are easily identified by all stakeholders. We certainly will allow flexibility of assessment implementation for school principals. And so once again, I'll say to our principals, you only have to give tests that are mandated either at the federal or state level. I want us to stop testing and start teaching. We are certainly working on developing a culture and climate survey. We'll do this in the fall. We will actually rate the effectiveness of every administrator in this district. We will do this for the administrator's benefit, and then we will share those results with them. And as always, we will continue to support the district's technology and support centers. That looks like a small line, and that's probably most of Albert's world every day, is what happens in all of his technology and support world. Moving on, I'll go to the Communications Division. We are in the process of transforming the district's web page with an identified district webmaster. So that is a position we will be filling in the near future, and she will work in conjunction with Albert in accountability and research. I think if we have a web page with all information in some type of easily identifiable format, it will stop a lot of questions, and we certainly need to be transparent with our information. We will also put together what we call an internet and an intranet website. So we will have a website for employees and a website for the public. So everyone can have access to the same information. We will enhance weekly communication to district employees regarding relevant district information, including but not limited to initiatives in academics, arts, and sports programs. Many times, even I, at my level, hear about a sports event or an art event or an academic event, and I'm thinking, where did I read that? And so we need to see if we can do a better job for all of our employees. And then I think probably the thing that Jo does best and most likely her favorite job, I think you think about this when you go home. And that is, she continuously is reviewing all district policies and procedures in conjunction with legal counsel. And so I have charged her with going through all of the policies and have those reviewed and in place as soon as possible, just so that we are in full compliance. Moving on to the operations, and I'm now calling this Operations and Leadership Division, and this is under Mr. Jaquez. The first thing that they're going to work on is the development of the March 2018 bond referendum. We must identify needs by, and we listed students, parents, teachers, staff, principals, and where's Debbie, community members. So we're certainly going to look to see what recommendations anyone might have for us for the bond referendum. We are going to transform and reorganize the transportation department with continued dialogue with bus drivers and the private transportation company. Mr. Jaquez and along with Tiffany provide leadership support and oversight of the elementary schools, and then Mr. Jaquez to the middle schools. We will continue that. I think before my arrival, all principals reported to the superintendent. One of the first things I did was ask that we have a director of elementary school principals, and Tiffany Gomez is back there somewhere. So she stays busy with 26 elementary principals every day. Gabe, being a former middle school principal, has the middle school principals, and then I kept the high school principals since that's my only knowledge of the world with me. And we will continue, and the key here is to provide leadership and support. We are not managers, we are leaders. We are also going to establish a leadership division where, as we look at our elementary, middle, and our high school principals, we have about 26 of 41 principals with less than 3 years of experience as a leader. And so as we look at those individuals, we need to provide them support, both from the leadership side as well as the teaching and learning side. And of course, we will continue to support the physical plant and all of the operations that take place every day. Once again, this is one of those small lines that look simple, yet if we didn't have the PPD and the work that Mr. Stout, is he back there, and his crew do every day, we certainly wouldn't have buildings in operation. Moving on to the Human Resource Division, this is under Dr. Serrano's supervision. Transform the culture of Human Resource Division to a service-oriented approach that provides accurate, efficient, and transparent support to all employees. Redesign the process of hiring employees with a focus on allowing principals greater flexibility in hiring candidates once positions are published. Redesign the process of new employees for a more streamlined onboarding process, with multiple administrators offering service and information to employees. So this is mostly in the summertime, but when we hire new employees, there's a process you go through. And so we're going to see if we can make that process even better, especially as we explain to you insurance, life insurance, the teacher retirement system, and all those things that would come with the benefits of you having a position within the district. We are right now working on a cost analysis and a timeline for redeveloping and compressing the district's salary schedules. And in just a few words, they're a mess. But we are certainly looking at that. We're going to look and see what money it would take for us to get those in some better shape than what we see them today. As always, sustain a positive, productive, and collaborative relationship with our NEA Las Cruces and CSEC Las Cruces collective bargaining units, and I think we must always continue open and transparent dialogue. And so to President Hartman and President Valdespino, we pledge to you to continue working both from Dr. Serrano's office and my office with both of your organizations, as we should. We are going to develop leadership academies, and the leadership academies need to be for different groups of individuals. The first I'm going to call our teacher leaders. I don't want our best teachers leaving the classroom. I want them staying in the classroom. But that doesn't mean we can't teach them how to be a leader. And then we'll look at our aspiring school leaders academy. So if you want to become an assistant principal, let's have an academy for you there. Our novice principals, we need an academy for the ones with less than 3 years of experience. And then we'll look at our office, central office leaders here, we even need training and help from day to day as well. And then finally, we are in the process of revising employee work calendars for a more streamlined process. Very soon, the employees will see, we will post on the webpage a calendar based on how many days a year you work, showing you exactly what your work days are, so that you no longer have to read through emails and find that memo that tells you which days you get off at Christmas time. And then I certainly have left the Financial Service Division last, but that doesn't mean that they are any less important. It's the money center of the district. All of us know you don't do anything without going through Crystal first, because we have to see if the funding is there. And so I'm going to say we're going to continuously monitor all funding and expenditures and provide transparent, accurate, and timely information to the school board and all stakeholders. And I will say that Ms. Valdez and her team have done a beautiful job of that, I think, thus far. We also will maintain open and transparent records of all district financial procedures, audits, expenditures, revenue, and cash reserves at all times. Our records are open to the public. These funds are public funds, and we are committed to showing that to the public. We do have a program now where employees can participate in a 403B program. This is just an extra retirement program. We'll see if we can add a 457B program to that. This will just be an additional option to our employees. It will not be a cost to the board or to the district, but it's simply a way for employees to put money away for future retirement savings. In the business world, they call these the 401k plans. And Madam President and members of the board, as I conclude, I started with 3 words: transform, innovate, and support. That was the goal of what we were putting together with the 90-day plan. As each of these initiatives are implemented, the executive cabinet and I will be working with the district's principals, teachers, and support staff regarding implementation and up-to-date information. I stand before you to say I am humbled to serve the Board of Education as your leader, and I remain your advocate to our teachers as we continue a process for improvement and recognition for the work of all of our district employees. Madam President, that concludes my 90-day Look, Listen, and Learn report.
I only have one thing to say, Dr. Ewing.
Yes, ma'am.
Board members, any questions or comments?
Wow. Lots of good
Yes,
stuff.
okay.
Madam
Mr.
President,
Castro?
I'm very amazed at what is accomplished. Those 90 days certainly don't compare with the 100 days that our Buster President accomplished. But we would like to also have your ideas on how we can be more involved and what areas we can be of more help as individuals or a group.
That's a good one.
Madam President, Dr. Ewing, all I have to say is that I'm very honored and privileged to be here working with the board and with you and with our community, and you've made a world of difference already. Thank you.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Ewing, I just wanted to tell you thank you, and it's an honor to, like Ms. Dahlman said, to serve on the board and to be working with you. You know, I see a lot of people out in the community, and it is just it's a feeling out in the community. It's just a spark that you've brought to our community, and you can see this. If anybody sees this, this is not a job to you. This is your passion, and there's a difference. And when you put passion into something, good things come out. And I would take my hat off as a school board member, and I would talk to you as a parent of 2 children that attend Las Cruces Public Schools. We are moving in the right direction, and I'm excited that you're leading us into the future, and for my children, and eventually my children's children. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yes.
Mr. Frank, you had a question for Dr. Ewing on the budget.
Yes, you kept mentioning that we're going to receive it next week, or be presented next week. I think our next
yes,
meeting
and-
is the 16th, correct?
Let me make sure I'm correct. Crystal, if you can help me. We will do a public unveiling of the budget, and then we will actually have a presentation in another board meeting. But the public unveiling of the budget, would you discuss that with them?
Yes, and thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We will provide to the board a draft of the budget on Monday, the 8th. And then we will also have a town hall meeting on the 9th where the public is invited for Dr. Ewing to present the budget and open for questions and recommendations. And at the May 16th will be the formal approval of the budget.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
And, Madam President and members of the board, we were thinking in doing this, it allows the board some time to study the budget, even though it's not much time, and it also allows the public time to study our budget. So, help me, I may need Joe, for the public unveiling, will the board be in formal session during that presentation?
No, you'll be the presenter, but they certainly can be in the audience
Okay.
to listen.
Okay, so I will present from the podium, and we'll present in this room, but it will not be a formal board meeting.
Correct.
Okay, and so we will invite all board members to attend, but you will have the entire budget packet in your hand, and then we will also upload that to the webpage. So it's not as if we're going to hide anything in the budget. If you're a member of the public, that budget will be uploaded the day we present it to the board as a tentative budget, so that when you come on Tuesday, you could ask us some questions. And I do have to say, we are working around the clock, 24/7 to get that ready. I don't think we're ready just yet to hit the button, but we will certainly have that ready for the board by next Monday.
Well, Dr. Ewing and members of the board, I just want to compliment you on your listen and learn report. It's very comprehensive. I think that you've covered all the areas of concern that the board has had, and that you are ready to address it. We just want you to take care of yourself, do it thoughtfully, and just it's going to take. It's a process. We don't expect it to turn around. I'm going to use the word turnaround.
Overnight. yeah.
Overnight,
Yes,
yes.
ma'am.
This will take time, but we compliment you on your transparency, on your accuracy, on your finding the things that need improvement.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam
Okay,
President.
yes.
I just want to say, and the relationships that you're building
Yes.
with not only the teachers at every level in the community, and so all the things that you said, but the relationship part of this is amazing.
Definitely.
And I think that it's really bringing us together as a community from every level at every school and really the community. So I just want to add that to your
Yes.
list.
And I forgot, remember, we're here to help you,
Yes, ma'am.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will now turn it over. We haven't had a chance to let Evan have a comment on this, but it's now student advisor, so if you wish to comment on that plan, you're welcome to do so as well.
Well, I just wanted to say, Dr. Ewing, that as an LCPS student myself, I've already seen just this school year a large difference in first of all, the attitude that the administrators have, that the students have. It's a lot more positive, and I really want to thank you for that. Doing great. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'm ready to move on to the
Yes, go ahead.
advisor report. So,
Very good.
shall I stand for this? Okay,
Oh,
awesome.
no, you don't
No?
need to stand.
Okay.
You can just, or do you want him to present up there?
Oh, no, you can read from
Yeah.
here.
Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Zigmund. I'm a senior at Oñate High School, and I'm a member of the Student Advisory Council. Today, I will be giving you the Student Advisor Report on behalf of the Council. I would first like to thank Dr. Ewing, Madam President, Dr. Miller-Tomlinson for attending the Academic Ambassadors Ceremony at Arrowhead Park Early College High School. I believe it was last Wednesday. I was privileged enough I had the privilege of being honored there, and I really would just like to say that it means a lot to have the encouragement and positive reinforcement from you guys and any other members of the community or the board that were there. I really want to thank you personally for that. On a different note, The Student Advisory Council is recruiting current freshmen, sophomores, and juniors for next school year. We are constantly looking over bylaws and advising the board. So if you know any students that age that would be interested, what we're doing from now to the end of the school year is a written recommendation is sent to the principal at the school of the student by a teacher or an administrator or some sort of public figure, and then the principal, along with a meeting of parents and teachers, other administrators, then confirms that. So if you know anyone that would be interested, we'd love to have them. And yeah, that's our student report. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Evan. Did any board members, any questions for a student? Or- Okay, yes?
I don't have a question. I just want to say that I'm proud to sit up here with Evan. He was my preschool student.
That's so
When he
sweet.
was, well, actually, you were 2. We snuck you in a little under the age thing, but he was 2, 3, and he was my student for about 3 years up until he went to kindergarten. So I just want to say that it's an honor. He looks the same. He very intelligent. He's just a little bigger, and what an amazing young man that he is. So it's an honor to be up here sitting next to Evan, and I just want to wish you well. And thank you for everything that you're doing. And so
Thank you so much, Mr. Army. I appreciate that.
I feel old too. That's the other
Those
thing.
are the, those are the connections
I
of the
tell you,
community.
I tell you.
And I'd like to also mention that Evan was one of the students that presented in front of the, what was it, the committee?
Senate Rules
The
Committee.
Senate Rules Committee up in Santa Fe. He was one of the ones that sat there and took some of the tough questions, so
Scary.
a great deal of maturity shown there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I won't tell any stories, preschool stories.
Gotta keep those
I
quiet.
promise I won't tell you any. So.
Thank you, Evan. We now move on to instruction, and Ms. Martinez.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, this afternoon we have a presentation on our social studies textbook adoption. And I wanted to let the board know it's been 12 years since our last adoption. So we're excited that this opportunity is occurring. And George Bush was president. And part of the history was because there was lack of
Obama just
appropriate funding over the years and so on, but at least this year we're caught up and have an opportunity to be able to adopt. So doing that presentation, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Lane Widner, who is one of our instruction coordinators and members of the staff. We do have books up there that they're looking at, so I'm going to turn the presentation over to Lane. Okay.
Let's look at these, check them out, pass them around.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent, it is my honor to stand before you today and talk to you about our process for textbook selection for 2016-2017. I'm honored to have 2 of the outstanding content specialists here with me today that work at the Teaching and Learning Center. To my right, we have Sarah Hall, who works with our high schools with English, ELA. And to my and social studies. And to my left, we have Josie Miller, who works with the middle schools in social studies and English language arts as well. They'll be talking in just a little bit. But coming to work for Las Cruces Public Schools, I feel very fortunate because you have a great policy in place for how the school district goes about adopting textbooks. The policy you can see on the slideshow there is very clear as to how we go about the process. When you get into our regulation, it's very clear that my job was to establish committees and to go to the schools and to go to the teachers and find out what textbooks were the best choice for the school district and the schools. We began the process last September of textbook adoption. And at the time, we had, based on our initial allocation, we were anticipating we would have so much money, and we, and as it has evolved and worked this year, our budget has changed a bit. But we are going to be able to fund an adoption this year, K through 12. I began the process by establishing a textbook material review committee, of which Sarah and Josie were both part of. And the selection of the textbook material review committee started in September. And you see there that we have a list of people that were employees that were here in-house. So we had content specialists, we had people from technology, we had our directors for elementary, for secondary at the time. And then we had our instructional material people with us as well. We had a group of content specialists, and we came together and we talked about, what do we need? What do we need in the schools? It's been 12 years, and so what do we need? What would be the best thing to adopt? We had a list from the state of publishers that we could consider. In the state, there are adopted publishers and there are non-adopted publishers. And so we had a list of this one provides New Mexico history, this one provides U.S. history, this one, and so we were looking for what would be the best bang for our educational buck and what publishers would provide the most for our students. The Textbook Material Review Committee met with about 6 to 7. There were 2 committees. There was elementary and secondary. They met with different publishers. Secondary met with about 6 different publishers. Elementary met with 3. And so the elementary choices were a little limited. And I'll get into that in a minute when we talk about the selection. Our procedure back to the policy requires that we have representation of teaching staff when we establish the selection committee. And so the directors and myself, we went to the schools and we were asking for, leader teachers. We were asking for administrators. We were asking for people that were passionate about social studies curriculum. And we fortunately had representation from each of our schools. And you can see there's the name of our elementary selection committee. The elementary selection committee and the middle and the high school groups all started meeting with publishers in January, and they made their selection in March. So there's the elementary selection committee. Here's the middle school selection committee, and I'll let Josie talk about how we came up with these individuals.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent, I worked with the middle school principals, and we decided to invite the department heads to be part of this process. And as Mr. Lane said, posted on the PowerPoint are the 8 representatives, 1 from each middle school.
Thank you, Josie. The list that you see here is the high school textbook selection committee, which is a little more broad, and I'll let Sarah talk about how we came up with that group.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. So background, I came here from Chicago in August, so I wasn't as aware of some of the, I guess, what we've historically done, and so I took to heart when they said this is going to be a committee of the school teachers. And as you can see, instead of just the 4 comprehensive schools, which have been, I think in the past, who we really get input from, I got people from both campuses at Arrowhead Park, and then I included all of our alternative programs. So that would be Rio Grande Prep, Del Rey Cobra Vista, which is what houses the Doña Ana, was the jail and the hospital, and then Crossroads, which is our alternative education program. Additionally, I tried to make sure, or we did make sure, that every single content area was represented. So these teachers are New Mexico history, U.S. world, principles of democracy, and then even some of our AP teachers were involved too. So
Made a good cross section. as we got into the selection process, we held meetings in January and February and leading up into March, and we made our final selections. The selections came from the teachers, the schools, the rubrics, the community. Everybody had the opportunity to see the materials and to kind of choose the curriculum that they thought that was best for their school. I did gather all of the rubrics from elementary, I think on March 1st. And when we tallied the scores, the choice, it's very interesting. Elementary, when we started the process, they do a lot of English, they do a lot of math, and they didn't think that they wanted social studies. Well, after they met with Pearson, they're very excited about their new social studies. It's a very comprehensive curriculum. It's got digital components, it's got online programs. It brings in humanities. There's art, there's music, there's consumable workbooks that every kid will get. You know, every year our students will get these workbooks that they can use and keep, and it really brings history alive for our young people. And so we will, elementary chose to go with Pearson Learning. It will be a 6-year adoption. And as I mentioned, they will replace the consumable textbooks every year. We'll have access to the digital components. The teachers will have logons, they'll have files. The students will have files where if they want to save their music or the things that they've done, they can do that as well. And so the elementary teachers were very excited about how it adds to the English and it adds to the reading and it adds to, you know, all of that good teaching that they're doing K through 5. So Pearson will be our elementary adoption. Josie, why don't you talk about middle school adoption?
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent, I want to briefly highlight some of the features of the textbook and the textbook materials. First of all, they are all digitally accessible. And with that, you do have that hands-on interactive process component. I want to tell you that all the digital texts are also leveled for our on-grade readers as well as our approaching learners. And if you look in the back displayed, we also have a Reading Essentials complimentary consumable text. And that too provides text for our approaching on grade level and is provided in Spanish as well. Teachers selected this book because of the support outlined in the book. For example, it does give you additional resources to help our advanced students, our English language learners, and our beginning level learners. Most importantly, I do want you to know that these texts were given to the hands, or given to the consumer, our students, and they had time to critique this book, and they really, what appealed to them was the visuals. It was visually appealing to them, and for us, we felt that was extremely important because it does promote visual rhetoric, which is part of the Common Core State Standards. And our 7th grade textbook, which is the Gibbs-Smith, that book was selected because it is aligned to the EOC. Okay. Thank you.
Sarah, will you please speak about the high school adoption?
All right. So most of the things that Josie just told you about middle school, you're going to also see in the high school. One thing that is also provided, so we don't have the Spanish availability for the textbook, but what is offered are the Spanish summaries of everything. And then we also have the Reading Essentials that has the ELL support and the Spanish versions. In addition, on the digital platform, one of the things that the teachers really loved about this, so every student will get a digital textbook. It will be accessible to them, and these things will follow them 9 through 12, or 6 through 12. There's this availability on here that I think this is what sold the textbook. So when you go in, the teachers can actually, or the students themselves, teachers don't have to do it. They actually can modify the text as they see fit. So they can actually, if they're they're approaching grade level, they can make that change. If they're ELL students, they can make that change. And it does things, I know I have some teachers here, so it does anything from changing the sentence structure so it's more easily accessible to students that may not read as well in English as they do in Spanish. And it actually adds some vocab support and things like that. Another thing that is really, really important about this and why we really need a new textbook. A lot of things have changed since the 90s when some of these were published. I've walked into these high schools, middle schools, like I think one of the textbooks, the last president was George Bush Sr. That was actually in the textbook. But in addition to just losing that history that is there, we have a multicultural perspective that just did not exist in the 90s. Some of the ways we write history and the people we include in it now, they didn't exist, and they do in this textbook. Additionally, primary resources are huge. Nonfiction is a really big deal right now, as it should be. And this really does support that in a really significant way.
The other day I walked into a classroom and they had their textbooks there and I was there to help. And the teacher said, well, you're a history teacher. You could teach my lesson. And I said, actually, that's the book that I taught. And I haven't been a classroom teacher for 10 years. So, so it's the same book. And you talked about the UNM Press.
I did not.
Do you want to?
I think it's self-explanatory.
UNM Press is the only source for a New Mexico history textbook, and they have a high school textbook. And so our committee's goals was to make sure that we had the correct book in our high schools. And so all of our high schools will have a history of New Mexico since statehood going into next school year.
Madam President, may I?
Yes.
Lane, can we go back one slide, please? I'm learning the sequencing here. So as I'm studying what you have here, I noticed that New Mexico history is taught here, you see, in the 7th grade. Now go forward a slide. Can we go up one more, please? All right, and now I see it's taught again in the 9th grade. And then I see world history and U.S. history, and then up here I saw a government book. When do we teach geography?
It's embedded.
Geography is embedded.
It's embedded, yes.
Okay. And so we're teaching, is this a state requirement that we teach New Mexico history in both 7th and 9th grades?
It is.
And so we have no flexibility.
9th grade's a semester class, by the way.
Okay, right. And I'll get with staff later for more information. Okay, thank you.
I have a question in that regard. In New Mexico history, we used to teach it in 4th grade. Is that still not part of the 4th grade curriculum?
It is still part of 4th grade.
Yes.
Yes. And Pearson was the only company that was on the state adopted list
Okay,
because they have New Mexico pieces in their curriculum.
okay.
So we do have a 4th grade back there too that you're welcome to look at.
I'm a New Mexican now, but 4th grade, 7th grade, and 9th grade and no geography bothers me, I have to say.
Other states require geography in 6th grade.
Yeah.
And so some of our publishers presented geography stuff to us.
The materials look beautiful, and I'm sorry to stop you in your presentation.
That's okay. Definitely feel free. Correct. So after the spring budget hearing 2 weeks ago, we did get our final allocation as to what our money would be. And like I said, it is substantially less than we had originally anticipated. Fortunately, our publishers are very willing. They know it's tough times, and they're going to work with us to make sure that we do have an adoption happen. We received $920,526 as a school district. Back to our procedure, I'm required to split that K through 5 and then 6 through 12. So elementary will receive $460,263, with middle and high school receiving $460,263. And like I said, we've negotiated it. We've got it set to where we will be able to keep this adoption for the 6 years. And of course, there are samples. And do you have any questions?
Are we buying a book for every student, or are we buying class sets?
Elementary, we're buying a book for every student every year. It's a workbook. It's a consumable. And so Pearson will provide us with those consumables for 6 years.
Right.
High school, our students will have the digital component. They'll have it on their phones. They'll have it on their iPads. They'll have it on the computers in the classroom. They'll also have classroom sets and we're trying to up those to where there's 35 per classroom set. So if they want, if they need a take-home book, we'll have that.
But, excuse me, I'm sorry. Is it accessible at home online, the book?
It is.
For homework purposes and whatnot?
It is.
It can be downloaded in modules. at the school site. So if they have a device, then they will be able to access it.
And it's very interesting because their digital. We live in such a high tech world now that the digital components are amazing. The kids have their own accounts, and they'll log in and they'll have access to their book. They'll have access to their assignments. They'll have readings and maps to look at, and these online components are truly amazing.
Madam President.
Yes.
So I'm a little concerned. I mean, do all the students have internet access in their homes?
They do
So
not.
how do we deal with that?
They do not, and so that's why we want to make sure that we do have books that that are available to be sent home, to be checked out, and we've negotiated with the reading essentials at middle school, so we'll have those for our ELL students, and students will have access to that.
So,
Ms.
Madam
Dahlman?
Madam President, I have a question in regards to bilingual materials. As a retired bilingual teacher, I struggled the entire time that I taught to find materials, because they would always say, that's coming, we don't have it right now for you guys to preview, but if it gets adopted, it's going to be sent. And then and I'm not saying that your company will do this, but this is what would happen. They would send us a tiny little revised pamphlet, and the kids never had their textbook to take home with them, and I think that's essential.
You are absolutely correct. We had one of our publishers that they said, well, we won't have that until the summer, so you can't look at it, but we won't have, and that actually hurt them in the process because our teachers wanted to see that.
Right.
And so when Pearson came, they did bring the Spanish materials. They showed us how we can change it from English to Spanish relatively easily. McGraw-Hill also did, and they've shown us their materials, and so
As a translation, is that what's happening?
you can translate within the digital platform. And so if the student wants their book in Spanish, they can put it in Spanish.
So, and if you'll notice, some of the materials you guys have, oh, you hear me? You actually have that reading essentials, which will be something every student could have. It won't just be digital, it actually will be a consumable they can hold on to. There are actually, if you'll flip through there, or maybe it's a digital, there's also the digital worksheets. So that whole thing can be in Spanish, that reading essentials, entirely in Spanish. And I don't speak Spanish, unfortunately, so I can't tell you how great it is. But if you'll look at the sample, the digital samples, it's a much smaller one. You can flip through there, and when you find an exam, right after the English version is the Spanish version. And they do it with the worksheets, the exams, all those things. Those won't be printed. Those will be digital, so the teachers can print it. That will kind of help us some of that. So I don't know if you want to look at that to see that translation, to see what you guys think of it. This one had one of the most authentic ones from as far as our teachers were telling us. And then I did want to go back. I don't know if you were you asking the question about when you were mentioning kids having something to take home? Was your concern that kids won't have a textbook at home? Was that your concern?
Or even access to the internet at home. And so I'm really concerned with that.
I do want to reiterate what he was saying is, and most of our students do have devices, at least in my experience in the high school setting. Not all, definitely. We still have some issues. But most of the kids, when I go in, I can tell you because of the issues with smartphones and texting and being on the internet during class, it's a big thing. So this textbook can be downloaded to that, and it can be done by modules, so it doesn't take, or by chapters, so it doesn't take up the entire space on their device. So if they go home with or without internet, they can actually read through and look at the material they need.
And it doesn't use their data.
And so let me just direct staff, board, I think what we will do is, once we have these materials, let's do a couple of things. One, Dr. Lozano, will you review the Spanish materials to ensure that it is Spanish that is adequate for this region of the country, and we don't have Catalan or some other kind of Spanish in there? And then two, I think we need to send a survey to our teachers once school starts to ask if students really are having access to materials. If you discover, Evan, can you help me, are there high school students without telephones?
I think we're covered for the most part.
Okay, so it may be middle school, but if we discover that students don't have something to download this on, and if teachers are telling us, I only have one class set and I don't want to give up all those books so that I don't lose one and not have books for a lesson, let us know if we need to purchase more. We'll go to Crystal. I mean, it may be as simple as putting 5 more books in a school building so that they can sign those out at night to the 5 students who can't have a, because our concern is, as you listen to the board, and I know we live in a different age. We were not raised with computers the way young people were. Our first concern is, do they have access to that? And our second concern is, if they don't, I don't want teachers to say, I can't give a homework assignment because I don't have books.
Correct.
We certainly want to look at that. So let us know. And as you order your class sets, I hope, as we've done our scheduling, if you are ordering 35 books and our classes are going to be at, let's say we divide by 25 in middle school, that we have ample materials.
And Dr. Ewing, on that note, these workbooks, the Pearson workbooks, those do not come in Spanish at all. They do. They do.
They do.
They do.
They do.
Consumable comes in Spanish.
And these are consumable
Our
every year.
representative is gathering
Or these other ones.
our numbers as we speak.
Okay, that one
He's-
comes
Yeah.
in Spanish.
That one, they
Okay.
come in full Spanish.
Okay, so then elementary is in full Spanish.
Correct.
Okay, and so let's have Dr. Lozano also look at that, just to see.
Roberto, are you with me on this? And so I think we've met the Pearson rep down in El Paso, so
Okay.
see if
And
you can
Dr.
connect.
Lozano he's been helpful in the process. I mean, so,
Yes,
but
I'm-
we'll make sure that he
yeah.
gets a closer look.
It's always the biggest concern, because
Yes.
I've also been on that receiving
Yes.
end where they promise us the moon and we don't get
Yes,
half of it.
exactly.
All right, so,
Thank you
Yeah.
all so much.
President,
okay, one more question, I'm sorry.
President, I just had one concern. Where are the publishers located? Because I understand in Texas, a lot of the publishers are printing a history that is more bent towards the conservative elements.
So our McGraw-Hill is out of Denver, and Pearson is out of Phoenix, and we have local reps. We have one rep from El Paso and one rep from Albuquerque, and that's very interesting that you bring that up, because the New Mexico history books, the Gibbs Smith book is printed in Phoenix, and it's New Mexico history, and then UNM Press is in Albuquerque, and so it's, but our end of course exam for middle school comes from the Phoenix book, and so
Let me just address to Mr. Castro. My experience in Georgia was Pearson produces a book for the Texas school system because they're so large, but the rest of the states refuse to purchase that book. So actually, Pearson may have 2 U.S. history books. One that's printed only for students in Texas, because Texas is a statewide adoption system where they adopt statewide.
Right.
Whereas other states said, I don't want just that particular book. And so I will verify, looking at the materials that we're seeing here, I would assume that those companies gave us the national viewpoint of the book, not
Correct.
the Texas version of the book.
correct.
Is that?
It is, and you'll see too on that other chart we gave you about the PED, like who they said we could adopt. You'll see that a lot of these companies did have 2. It would say Pearson US, Pearson, you'd have 2, and it
Yes.
was because exactly
Yes,
for
yeah,
that
yeah.
reason.
And he,
The most aligned.
he is correct. In Texas, they go line by line through the book. They
We had
rewrite
one
history.
publisher that said they would help us with that they would give us their Texas history book, and we were like, no, we don't want that. We want New Mexico. So
Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
all
your
so much.
presentation and for your work, for
Thank
your
you very much.
collaboration.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Roberto Lozano, who will be leading a presentation on proposed rules by the New Mexico PED to the bilingual and multicultural rules and regulations.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Mr. Superintendent, members of the board. Irma brought this topic up earlier, so perfect segue for me to stand here and give you the information. So as a matter of fact, this morning there was a public hearing in Santa Fe for this very topic, the proposed rule changes. So what I want to do today is give you just the most important information of the changes, and more importantly, how it would impact our district. And to go to option B, what will we do if it does take into effect? So, like I said, what is being proposed is to change the guidelines in the Multicultural Education Bilingual Act, which was enacted in 2014. There are 4 major proposed changes to the regulation. 2 out of the 4 are directly correlated with the recent update to the federal law of ESSA, which is connected to No Child Left Behind, and this really impacts. And here's an overview of it. So I'm looking at program evaluation and also program renewal. So this is really aligned to what the changes are in the federal level. So it could be connected to what we have in regulation for our state. And this deals with how do we keep better track of our programs that we offer to students that are bilingual, but also how do we keep track of students that are in bilingual programs that are not necessarily English learners. As you know, some of the programs that are offered, currently right now there's 5 programs. Out of the 5, there's 3 right now that are intended for students that are English language learners, but also for students that English is not their dominant language. So going back to the sections that are being proposed to be revised, the first one, program approval, this is focused on the Native American languages. What they're proposing to do is to ensure that districts that do offer Native American languages as a bilingual program, that they get approval from their tribal leader. So they want to ensure that the community, the Native American community, is also involved in the decision making of what that language is in regards to the bilingual education. The second one is program element. So I put that in red because that's what I'll be discussing in more detail, because that's what would impact our district. And it has to do with the amount of bilingual programs that are being offered to districts. Like I said, there's 5 bilingual programs. Right now we have dual language, heritage, transitional, maintenance, and enrichment. Those are the 5 programs that are currently available right now. And again, I'll get into detail in my next slide. And the last one is program evaluation. Again, this is aligned to the new ESSA rules, the new ESSA regulation from the federal government. And it really emphasizes the importance of keeping track of how students are doing that are language learners, but also the students that are not language learners in the programs. So, slide. So currently, what do we have in Las Cruces? Right now, we offer dual language programs and maintenance bilingual programs. I won't get into much detail about the funding formula for these, but to sum it up, the way our district gets funded is by the amount of hours that we offer students in a bilingual setting. So each program, it gets funded by individual hour. For example, a dual language program, the most funding we could get is for 3 hours. Per hour, give or take, it's about $300 per student that participates. So 300 times 3 hours, that's $900. That goes directly to our district's SEG funding. So that's directly to the big pot, what we call it, right? It doesn't say that money that is generated goes to the bilingual department. It just goes as part of the big pot for the district. In a maintenance bilingual model, for this one, only English learners could participate. So again, dual language, any student in our district that chooses to be in a dual language setting can participate. For maintenance, it's only English language learners. And that's the way it's set up in the state right now. So the question is, what happens if this proposed rules change and we only have maintenance? So this is, before that, I'm sorry. I wanted to provide you with this information because it gives you a good idea as to the trend that we see in bilingual programs in our district. Going back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, And if you look at on top, blue represents dual language students that are English learners, non-English learners in dual language. So again, those are students that English is not their second language. And then our students in the maintenance bilingual model, which again are only students that are ELs, meaning English learners. So if you look at the 2016-17 school year, this is based out of 120-day reporting data. For maintenance, in the maintenance bilingual model, we have approximately 377 students. So that equates to, if we round up, that's about $270,000 that these programs are generating for the district. So what happens if this does go through? What PED is proposing is to streamline the amount of programs that are being offered. Again, there's 5 right now. They want to say, let's just do 3 because two out of the 5 are very similar. Really, the only difference is language within the goals. As a matter of fact, for the next board meeting, you'll be reviewing the applications for each school and what bilingual model they're going to implement. And there's always a confusion between transitional bilingual model and maintenance because the content is the same. So in a maintenance bilingual model, each student that participates gets 60 minutes of English as a second language, ESL, and then 60 minutes of Spanish language arts. In a maintenance bilingual model and transitional, it's exactly the same thing. So if this were to happen, what our district would do would go to transitional bilingual model. So the same students would be able to participate. That would not change. Really, the big change would be the name of the model that we have. And I also want to note that within the proposal, PED is also requesting that the definition for transitional model is more aligned to what the Office of Civil Rights, how they define it, which is designed to develop skills in the primary or home language while introducing maintaining and developing skills in English. So again, big change for us would be the name. If you recall, approximately 5 years ago, our district did have transitional programs. The thinking behind moving into maintenance was because maintenance is seen as more of an additive bilingual program than transitional. Just the name transitional gives it a negative connotation, like we don't value the Spanish language. But if you see in the definition, really that's been transformed within the last 20 years to a more additive bilingual model where we do use the Spanish language or it could be another language depending on the community as a form to ensure that students have access to the content. So really those are the big changes, and we'll probably find out here within the next few weeks if it does get approved. There was a lot of information going around on the internet regarding dual language and how it would impact dual language. I want to emphasize that really in dual language there is no impact to dual language programs. So students will still be able to participate in dual language programs, and English learners would still be able to participate in maintenance for next school year, but if it goes through in the 18-19 school year, it would go to transitional. So with that, I stand here for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Lozano. Board members, any questions on this change? This is coming from the PED.
Correct.
Right? Okay, so. Okay, so I think we understand what they're doing. We hope it's a good thing for the program. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. That takes us on to finance and Ms. Valdez.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you for allowing approval of budget adjustments in the board work session. We are anxiously awaiting carryover and final awards to receive those in time to make strong financial decisions for instruction. We originally had one maintenance bar in the packet, and we did receive a second one at 2 o'clock this afternoon in our office, and so we have included that one as well. The first one is a maintenance bar for Head Start. and it's transferring funds between the operation and maintenance of plant to support services for parent engagement activities. The one that was added is for Title II, which is Teacher Principal Training and Recruitment. And this is a final allocation award, and the money is going to be allocated for instruction into the instruction function for additional compensation. So I stand for questions on either of those.
And Madam President, members of the board, both Crystal and I, we apologize to the board that we're inserting something, but as she stated, it only came from Santa Fe at 2 p.m. this afternoon. And what's tricky about this is if we don't react and accept these funds, they happily take them back. And so we certainly want to use any and every dollar we can, and we want board approval so we can have authorization to begin not only utilizing these dollars, but actually putting them in the correct budget codes. And so we are acting as quickly as we can. We heard from Santa Fe at 2 p.m., and we had copies made and ready for the board by 4 p.m. And we're just fortunate that the board was meeting today, and we didn't have to call you into a special session. And so just for the board to know, when you are asked to vote on something that you really haven't had time to study, it was only because we didn't have access to that info. And if we don't do something, we could lose dollars. So I apologize to the board, and we certainly are here for any questions you may have now.
So board members, you heard Dr. Ewing and Ms. Valdez. Do you have any questions on this additional bar? I know we saw the Head Start bar in our packet,
Yes, ma'am.
and we do have a copy of that.
Right.
Yeah, in our packet currently, so.
This is the extra stuff.
No questions?
No questions.
No questions.
All right, then I will speedily entertain a motion to approve the budget adjustments as requested.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Frank and with first and Mr. Dahlman. Miss Dahlman. You see, my phone buzzes, and it's telling me I'm getting a call, so I get distracted. Even though I don't have it around, I still get distracted. So we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so the budget adjustments pass. Thank you. Sorry. Okay, so that takes us on to new business, and we are moving, we don't have anything in operations or technology, so we're gonna go board items, new business. And we are going to discuss a resolution supporting ethnic studies in Las Cruces Public Schools. And I'm going to introduce it, okay? So do we have a copy of the resolution so we can look at it? Or do we have it in our packet?
It's in our packets, and we certainly will
Okay,
bring it forward.
okay, so let me go to that. I've got it. Okay, and this, there was, I had a meeting with, just to give some background, had a meeting with Dr. Nicholas Natividad from Criminal Justice Program at NMSU. And I met with him, and he talked to me about the importance of ethnic studies for our students. Now, I know this is important. It isn't a novelty or a new concept to me. I know that it's needed. And so then I asked Dr. Sanchez to consider putting together a resolution. And so what this resolution basically states is that there is a need, and it provides confirmation and helps with self-identity of our students, especially at-risk students. It improves outcomes for our students. As you go through this, you will see that at-risk students are the ones that especially need this kind of study, but it works for all students, not just our at-risk students. And then the ethnic studies would have to do with obviously Latino, Black, Southeast Asian, and American Indian populations. It would address the differences and the histories of the peoples. And It would also possibly add women's studies, gender issues, LGBTQ questions. It just allows room for discussion in our classroom that sometimes we don't have. And in allowing students to learn these differences, it really just, it shows how similar we are. And it prevents bullying. We do have a typo in one of the whereas. And what we're asking for as the board ultimately is that the superintendent create a task force that would consist of students, parents, high school teachers, and principals whose membership reflects the diversity found in our community, guidance counselors, ethnic studies, social justice, women's studies scholars from NMSU to advise, assist, and make policy. So this would not be implemented next year. It would take a year to study, to formulate, to develop curriculum, and we're talking about curriculum from middle school to high school. Now, we do have a program that does a little bit of this. It's the Enlace program, which really supports our Latino students in the district. But this is broader in context, and so is well appreciated, I think, by myself, and I value this kind of a curriculum. I know that Dr. Lozano has met with some of the specialists already. Today, was it today? And we have some professors from the university that are willing to work with us. So this it will be done in partnership with our university. Board members, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, Madam
Yes.
President.
Mm-hmm.
So I am in total support of this thing, but is there, I see this is our first reading, so what is the plan? To have 2 more readings, or I was just wondering if we could fast track it and
Well, this
vote?
is a resolution. We don't need to have a first, second, and third like a policy, do we?
You can vote on
We
it.
can just, and now, I think that it was not marked as an action
It's not an
item.
action item. We could
Yes.
vote at the next board meeting.
So we'll do that. Why don't you take it home, read it, see if there's anything missing in this resolution? And then we can send those comments or questions to Ms. Galvan, if there is one typo on the back. But other than that, if you think there's anything missing, or just let her know.
I read it.
Okay,
It's very
so,
thorough.
okay, and we thank Dr. Sanchez for doing this for us. He always is our go-to person when we do these things, and he supports this initiative as well. He told me that he did. So we will go ahead and make this an action item for our next board meeting. Any other comments? Okay, we're all good. Okay, thank you. And then that moves us on then to the first reading of policy BDF, regulation, BDFR, student advisors to the board and superintendent. Ms. Galvan, and this is to formalize our relationship, making student advisors policy, okay? Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, and Evan. As the president just said, it is to formalize a practice that's been going on for a couple of years now. You're the vanguards of New Mexico once again, moving forward in establishing a practice that involves students at your dais, and more importantly, to give them a voice so that they can give you recommendations, give you their feedback, and for you to hear about, from the student point of view, on how to make things better in our district. So this is a first reading. Under the position sections, I just want to briefly sort of point out on B, this has no bearing of when you have a student here, no bearing on the quorum status of the board, but you hope that you will have one person from the SAC at every board meeting. Under C, the SAC members will not participate in your executive sessions, but in all your other open meetings. On D, we're suggesting that only sophomores, juniors, and seniors that are in good standing be able to be nominated. So if you're a freshman, you could be nominated for the subsequent year. In E, the principal will oversee the selection process. And then we'll have deadlines and how to get those nominations to the principal. And then F, the principal will not make the decision in alone, but get some help with a committee that would have teachers, staff, parents, students, administrators, so that they can go through the nominees, and a student could nominate him or herself. In H, we'd like to get all of those named by the first week of May, and those students would rotate so you don't have just one all the time, the same one that is, giving everyone an opportunity. K, the students will develop their own bylaws, which they have been doing this past year, which governs themselves as advisors. Of course, anything that they would put in would need to be in concert with district policies and certainly follow all the statutes that we have. The bylaws would be coming to their advisor, who would help oversee their work, not oversee it, actually just facilitate it. And at this point, their student advisor is Wendy Hammond from Instruction Division. In the regulations, I don't have that in front of me, I'm sorry, but basically your regulation then gives additional detail on some of the issues, such as how you get nominated and the process to do that, and you need to begin that process of getting people interested by April so that they're appointed by May. And let me see if there's anything else that's really needs to come out. Certainly, well, we put some of it in regulation so that we can get that changed when we need to, but the overarching pieces that you need to ensure that you're happy with is in the policy. And well, this is your first reading. I didn't know if you were going to want to just do 2 or 3 readings on this particular policy, but that certainly is up to you. I know Ms. Hammond has already or plans to distribute this. She expects some rewrites and suggestions from the students, which is great, and we will have that at the next meeting. Did you foresee that maybe you wanted to go 3 readings, Madam President, or no? Well, in order to allow the students to give us their input and to get public comment as well, I'd like to, we may need to do the 3 readings, okay. I think, just so that we can include everyone.
I agree.
Okay. This is an important policy.
Very important.
And I stand for questions at this point.
Thank
I'm sorry, your legal counsel has reviewed it and helped with some additional changes already. Thank you, Ms. Gallegos, for that. Board members, yes,
Yes,
Mr.
thank you, Madam President. I just noticed the pages are numbered kind of wacky, so.
Are they wacky? Okay,
Yeah.
we'll fix that.
Anyway, but I do have something to bring up. So
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the rationale is to limit the district advisor to be an administrator. You know, why not any staff member?
I did think about that. Honestly, you could make that change. My gut feeling was that generally we want to protect teachers' time and allow them to do their teaching and not give another assignment. And it's frankly easier to find an administrator to say, we'd like for you to do this. And there's a lot of administrators at schools or here. And so really it was all about just protecting time of those at the schools to not have them have an additional, not that they're a burden, but an additional part of their workload.
I think we could insert another word. Maybe we could say administrator or faculty member. Then in the future, if we ever had that opportunity, I know that Ms. Hammond does a beautiful job with them, and I think she would attest it. You do spend some time with them, and we look at that as a coaching opportunity. These are future leaders of America, and so. As we look at Evan, they get better every time they get up here. He's a perfect example of what we look for in these student leaders.
And you never know when somebody might want to volunteer, so I would hate to have that be shut down just because, in our policy, it's very specific
Sure.
that it be an administrator.
Are we okay, Madam President? Can we add another word?
I think so. I think that works. Let's have it for the second reading and see how.
Joe, can you work with legal counsel and come up? I was thinking faculty, but
That'd be
Ms.
fine.
Gallegos may give us a better word.
There may be, staff member? Yeah,
Yeah.
staff member, certainly, because if it's a passion of theirs, they might just want to do it.
Yeah.
Mr. Castro?
Yeah, Madam President, Are the reimbursement of related costs already taken care of, or do we need something here to cover them?
Oh, cost.
So when they travel to Santa Fe, for example, and are they,
Oh, no, anytime they travel, they're under my budget.
okay,
And so, in all honesty, they're taken care of better than the board, I have to say.
Oh, there you
We,
go.
we don't ask them to upfront anything. We pay for everything for them. Evan, am I correct in that assessment?
Yeah.
And I even encourage them to order dessert when they're with me. And so we would certainly not ask for them to have.
And should we perhaps include that in regulation?
Do you want something that we would not incur any expense against the student
Right.
to
Yeah, I think
be a
we
member,
should
that
add
kind of
yeah.
thing?
Yes,
Students
that-
would
that's a
not,
good
students would
catch.
never incur any expense.
Thank you, Mr. Castro, for that. Anyone else on? Okay, no? Okay, so I think this is a good start.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then we move on to the first reading of policy EBCF, firearms and weapons on school district property.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent. Before you have first reading of policy EBCF. This is a newly created policy with newly created language that comes through our Safety and Security Office, but it's recommended by our superintendent. I believe the language was drafted by our council, reviewed and revised in collaboration with staff. And so as we go through this, if you have questions, I would be more than glad to answer any of those that I have, but also defer to Dr. Ewing and Ms. Gallegos. And basically, I mean, it's all about safety for students and safety for staff, and providing a district policy that will, continue to support safety measures for our environments that we have our staff and students in. This is aligned with state and federal laws, and like I say, we had some initial language, and it's been reviewed by staff, by council, by Mr. Superintendent, been revised, and I believe it's gotten pretty tight in a good way. So I think we've tightened up some loopholes with that, and it's very specific. So with that, I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hawkes. Board members, do we have any questions or comments on this policy? This is a policy that Dr. Ewing talked me into bringing forward. And so I just want to make sure that everybody is comfortable.
Yes.
Okay,
I am comfortable.
all right, so then we have no questions and no comments.
Awesome, thank you.
We're just cautious.
Thank you, Madam.
Cautious.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
President.
Can I also
yes.
suggest that maybe we fast track this one and maybe only have 2 readings, since there don't seem to be too many concerns?
I agree with Dennis.
I think this is a good one to fast track, thank you.
So we will make this an action item at the next meeting, staff.
Okay, all right. So then that takes us on, we have no old business, and I apologize again to Ms. Cathay for removing those items, okay? We will find the right time to do this. We will move on to public input, and I'd like to make we keep working on the statement that we're reading, and I think I have one public input, Sherry Nolan. So, but before you come up, let me read the statement, okay? I'm gonna practice first. Before we move to public input, I would like to remind our audience of the board's procedures for handling public comment, which are found in policy, board policy BEDH, and on a sign-up card. Each speaker must complete a sign-up card prior to speaking. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per individual speaker and 5 minutes for each group spokesperson. The board welcomes public input. The board does not prohibit public criticism or comment upon personnel matters. However, any person making public comments shall be solely responsible for the content of his or her comments. The board neither adopts nor assumes responsibility for any comments made by individuals during the public input section of the board. And I just want to take a moment of personal preference here. Is for a long time, I've been on the board now, this is my 9th year. When I first got on the board, there was mostly not a lot of room for public comment. So that 3 years ago when I became president, or maybe it was 2 years ago, it started to change. And my effort was to let everyone speak. So we've gone from this to this, and now we need to go back to this. I've been told by legal counsel that in order to make it formal, we need to keep everything in its proper place. So what happens oftentimes is we get excited and we want to speak, and then people just bubble up. And so we're going to try and we're going from this, not going to this, but rather just keep it so it's open, everyone is allowed to speak, but let's do it at the right time and the right place. And I'm very, very casual. I'm from Southern California after all. I'm very, very casual. So to me, it's hard for me to do, but I will make an effort, but just know that I'm not trying to leave anyone out, okay? So I hope I've said the right thing there. And now we'll listen to our public input. Ms. Nolan?
I probably will get nervous, so.
Oh, no, don't get nervous, please.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Ewing. First, I would like to, if I'm allowed to, pass out a flyer to you.
Yes.
To invite you.
Or just hand it and we'll pass it, yes, so we don't take up your time.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Las Cruces High School Best Buddies would like to invite all of you to our Dimes for Down Syndrome Project Unify Special Olympics kickball event this Friday, May 5th, which is Cinco de Mayo, beginning at 12 o'clock at the turf and celebrating after the event at 1 o'clock in the doghouse. To give you a little background about Best Buddies and so on, this is our second year for the Project Unify kickball event and for our Best Buddies. We're actually about a year and a half in, actually. Each year we pick a cause to represent. Last year was Spread the Word to End the Word, the R word. This year we chose to collect money for Down syndrome families of Las Cruces, Dimes for Downs, which is for Down syndrome, which is called nationally if you want to look it up. Priscilla Pettis and my class collected $664 for this organization. Las Cruces High School is the only school in the southwest New Mexico that is a part of Best Buddies International. And I put the website down there at the bottom for you if you'd like to look it up, which is the world's leading organization dedicated to ending social, physical, and economic isolation of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We hope to involve more schools in Best Buddies in the very near future. So please let them know about our organization, and we will be happy to help them get started. We hope to see you there, and maybe one of you can throw the first pitch.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. We appreciate it. Okay, and board members, we know what to do on Friday. Okay, let's see. If nobody has anything else to say, then I will, yes, I'm sorry. Oh, okay, do you want, well, let's go ahead, and if you could fill it out for her and have her come up. Here we go, I'm breaking my own rules already.
It's a student.
I know, how can I not let a student speak?
No, Ellen,
Okay,
it's a student.
all right,
Oh, yeah, okay. Welcome.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
So now I ask Sophia Moore to come up.
Hello, Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. My name is Sophia Moore, and I'm an 8th grader at Camino Real Middle School. I came here today to discuss with you the possibility of funding for a national chess tournament. I'm the standing New Mexico girls K-12 chess champion for the 2nd year in a row. The tournament that I am seeking sponsorship for is the National Girls Tournament of Champions in Norfolk, Virginia. Each state only gets to send one girl to this national event, and since I won the state championship, I'll be the sole representative for our state. During this 4-day event, I will be playing 6 games. As I play each game, I'll display a New Mexico flag. This is what primarily makes this tournament unique. Each player has a flag which is given to them in the opening ceremony, and they take it with them to each game and place it in the stand next to their chessboard. This is one way for spectators and the players to know which state this person represents. I'm the first girl from Las Cruces to have ever won the state championship. I am proud to represent our state, and I have been playing chess competitively for 4 years, since I was in 3rd grade. I have been studying professional games and tactics more than I usually do in preparation for this national event, because I'm taking it very seriously. I am asking for financial assistance with my airfare, hotel, and meals, which will be approximately $1,700. I hope to become a leader in developing more interest in chess in high school next year. Thank you for taking your time to consider my request.
Well, thank you, Sophia, and congratulations. My goodness, that is very good. Congratulations to you. And where are you going again? I'm sorry, I missed. Norfolk, Virginia. And when are you going? The end of July. End of July, okay. Thank you, Sophia. Okay, if there is no further questions or comments, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, Mr. Frank and Mr. Castro, all in favor?
Aye.
Have a good evening.
Okay, so what are we gonna do about Sophia?
I have no.